Welcome to Broadcast Advocate, a podcast from NASBA, the National Alliance of State Broadcasters Associations, which discusses the latest news, trends, and stories impacting the world of broadcast radio and television. My name is Dave Arland. I'm Executive Director of the Indiana Broadcasters Association. Also, wear a couple of other hats in our industry, helping broadcasters with the transition to NEXTGEN TV. And it's my great pleasure today to have with us the Chief Technology Officer for the National Association of Broadcasters, Sam Matheny. Sam, welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here with you and appreciate the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite subjects.
Well, good. I'm delighted to have you here as well, and wanted to just kind of kick things off as we think about what's next for NEXTGEN TV. You know, this transition in some ways is very similar to the last transition from analog television to digital that happened many, many years ago. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it all concluded in 2009 in the Obama administration. And since that time, of course, millions of HD TV sets have been sold, and broadcasters made that transition to what is now called ATSC 1.0. And now we're into ATSC 3.0, which kind of leapfrogged 2.0, which was a non-starter, I guess is the easiest way to say it. But
Yeah.
3.0, as I understand it, and you can elaborate here, is kind of the best of over-the-air broadcasting with the best of over-the-top broadcasting. And I just wonder, from your catbird seat at the NAB, how do you think this transition to 3.0 is going?
Well, I think it's going exceptionally well, especially considering the constraints that we're under. But I'll go back and if I may, talk a little bit about 2.0,
Sure.
because that really speaks to the benefits of why we have a 3.0 and what that leapfrog was. Excuse me. I was part of the ATSC at the time when I was working at Capital Broadcasting and actually chaired a committee that said, hey, what would we want in a NEXTGEN TV standard? And the initial idea was that we were going to try to make it a backwards compatible. It's going to work with 1.0, and we'll just add some new features to it. And what became clear to us is that no, that's not what's needed. What's needed is, let's start with a clean sheet of paper. Let's really think about where the world is going and what are the tools that are going to make for the most effective broadcast system. And so that's what we did, and that's how we come up with ATSC 3.0. And when we look at transitions, you kind of mentioned some of the transitions that we've seen. If you go back and you say, well, okay, when we went from black and white to color, that was a backwards compatible transition. That was all within the NTSC standard, and so you didn't have to do a new system. When we went from analog to digital, that was a non-backwards compatible transition, and so you really did have to start over. And when we're going from ATSC 1 to ATSC 3, that is also a non-backwards compatible solution. So that really frames the type of transition that we're going to have, is that it is not backwards compatible. And the key difference this time between analog to 1.0 or 1.0 to 3.0 is, when we were doing the analog to 1.0, every station got a second channel, right? And so we have not been given second channels to do this transition. And this is why I say the transition is going exceptionally well. Even though we are very spectrally restrained, we've been given no new spectrum to do this transition. There are over 400 NEXTGEN TV channels being transmitted from over 100 stations in 80 markets, reaching over 76% of US television households where they have access to a signal. And that has sort of happened in a very resource constrained way. And so that's why I say we're doing exceptionally well. It speaks to two things. One, broadcasters' commitment to transitioning to ATSC 3, as well as the willingness to work together as an industry. So these are companies that are fierce competitors in many respects, but at the same time are coming together to really work together to make sure that we do get this transition to ATSC 3. when you look at ATSC 1 and the analog to digital transition, I used to be working at Capital Broadcasting Company. WREL went on the air with our first test station in July of 1996.
I remember when that happened. That was a big deal. You were like
Yeah.
the first local news in HDTV.
Yes, and so that was 96. And as you said earlier, we shut off analog in 2009. So you're looking at roughly a 13 year, transition. Now we went on the air with an experimental station that was a little before the FCC actually approved another more fulsome deployment. But bottom line, you're looking 12, 13 years transition. And so you look at today and you're like, well, hey, we're really tracking, and we're doing so in a resource constrained way. So happy about the efforts that have been put forth thus far. And again, hundreds of channels of content being available, new applications out there, high dynamic range, new, better pictures taking place, but also in that resource constrained way. And I know it's going to get better as we do the full transition.
Yeah, you mentioned high dynamic range, which some people may know it by the acronym HDR, which gives you a much improved look to the picture. Dolby Atmos, improved audio is another key benefit. You also mentioned applications or the broadcast app, and I wondered if you're not following this closely, you may not know what that is. It's not like, an app on your phone. It's not something that shows up here. It's something on the TV that just comes with the broadcast.
Yes.
Can you explain for the stations that are actually deploying that, what that means to the viewer?
Yeah, so what it means to the viewer is that they're going to have the ability to better and more deeply engage with the station's content. And so I think a real example that I will give is some of the work that NBC Universal has done and that they really showcased around the Olympics. And the notion is that you're watching the Olympics, you're in, you turn on that channel, and a little bug pops up on screen that says there's an application available, because there's a little, bit of something in the signal that says there's an application available. If you are a viewer and you're like, nope, I just want to lean back and watch what's being broadcast, you can do that. However, if you say, yes, I want to engage with this application, in essence, the video window can shrink and you can have navigation that is available to other forms of on-demand content that the station is offering. That could be updates on stats and what's happening in other events. That could be access to video on demand. It could be another popular application is the ability to start over. So you join the program in process and it's being broadcast live, but you're like, you know what? I missed the first 10, 15 minutes of it. I want to go back and start over. And those things are enabled by what you were referring to earlier, the idea that ATSC3 was developed as both an over-the-air and over-the-top television standard. So it seamlessly combines those. So really gives the viewer the ability to more deeply engage with the station content. I use the example of I use the example of the Olympics. The same principles could apply to news or other forms of programming.
In fact, the standard has some application that for advanced warnings for weather emergencies and such, you could actually geo-target, which I know is one of the things that the FCC is very interested in. Speaking of the commission, everybody with an axe to grind, is out there attacking the standard and the progress. And for some people, things aren't going fast enough, and others say, "Oh my goodness, there's nothing for sale." But in fact, I'm just sharing here a picture of this is the website watchnextgentv.com. And that's where consumers can go to find devices that are compatible with ATSC 3.0, also known as NEXTGEN TV, hence the web address, watchnextgentv.com. Not only can you find devices here, but you can also find all of the channels, for an individual market. So you can put in your zip code and see, oh yeah, in my city, this is what's available to me. Among the devices are, little converters like this one that are inexpensive. You can get that at Walmart. But looking forward, I mean, from a consumer device standpoint, what do you think is going to be necessary for us to be successful here and be able to shut off the 1.0 signal?
Yeah, so one thing I would say is that that's a great website and a great focal point, a place where people can go to learn more. But what you're going to learn when you go there is that there are television sets that are on the marketplace today. Over 15 million have already been sold. So I talked about the launch of all of these stations going on the air and transmitting, but on the other side, there's a large number of receivers that have been sold, and CTA predicts that that's really going to accelerate further in the years ahead, and that's before we get to any sort of official transition plan. And so you're going to have TV sets, or you already have TV sets from Sony, from Samsung, from TCL, from Hisense, and Panasonic and others that are available today. And you talked about NEXTGEN TV, and NEXTGEN TV is really, there's a logo program that we have, and I think it was part of the website that you presented. So if a consumer goes in and they see that logo, they know that they're going to get a 3.0 capable set. And so for me, I think there is a key piece to the transition, which is having lots of available television sets, and then also matching that with the ramp of TV stations that are transmitting ATSC3. So those two things will work together.
I'll come back to the FCC in a moment, but I wanted to give you the chance to also explain another benefit that maybe people haven't heard about. This is not necessarily a consumer benefit, although it could be, and that's something with an acronym BPS.
Yeah.
So explain what that is and what your team is working on and around that subject.
Well, so thank you for that. BPS, if it sounds a lot like GPS, Global Positioning System, that's because it is. BPS is a broadcast positioning system. It is a technology that we at NAB invented, and one that we have been doing some early deployments with. In essence, it is the terrestrial equivalent of GPS. We are leveraging the new NEXTGEN TV ATSC 3.0 signal structure, which I'm not going to get into, but we're leveraging that capability to insert a time of emission and the location of the tower, which is basically the same thing a GPS satellite does. And then in essence, we can deliver the same sort of timing signals that GPS satellites deliver, and leverage those in the same way. You can use them just for timing, which is what a lot of critical infrastructure across our nation does. Or you can also then combine them. When you combine multiple signals, you can calculate your position and then use that for navigation. So that is what BPS is. And why it's important is because GPS has become something of an invisible utility. What do I mean by that? Power substations synchronize the power that flows across our electric grid using timing that comes from a GPS satellite. The same is true for all of the cell towers in the cellular communications network. They use timing to time a line so that when you move from one tower to the next, that call doesn't drop, or that data connection doesn't drop, and you continue to receive the content or the conversation that you're taking place in. If you look at a financial or a data center, all of those centers require precision timing to execute everything from a stock trade to really any financial transaction down to a credit card swipe. And so because GPS is ubiquitous, because it is free, meaning that there's not a subscription for it, it's paid for by your tax dollars, all of these different industries have latched onto it and are using it, and it's actually become a single point of failure. And our government has recognized that. because if something happens to GPS and all you got to do is look at what's happening in other parts of the world to see how much it is being jammed, how much it is being spoofed, how people are manipulating it. If something happens to that, it really impacts our economic security, because all of these systems have been built on it. And so the government has said, hey, through Executive Order 13905 and through Space Policy Directive 7 and through these other mechanisms, we need a backup, or we need a complement, some other system. And so what we've done is we've developed BPS. We've been working with NIST, or the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They have evaluated it and tested it and declared that it is comparable to or better than GPS for time transfer. So if you're an energy substation, if you're a cell tower, if you're any of these 16 different critical infrastructures, you could just slot in BPS as your source of time, and that's the ultimate vision of that. And so what it does for broadcasters is much like we play a very critical role in the emergency alert system. It enables us to play a critical role in, securing our nation's economic and national security, which makes broadcasting another a whole new value proposition. So again, that is all enabled by ATSC 3.0 or NEXTGEN TV. It is not possible with the existing standard for a variety of technical reasons that we won't discuss here. But we do believe it can be a real benefit and a real additive reason to complete the transition.
I'm really struck by that old line from the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical. In Kansas City, they've gone about as far as they can go, because that's what I think about. I think about the transmitters. I can look out my window and see them in Indianapolis. We've got 4 stations on one ATSC 3.0 stick there. Up in South Bend, Indiana, near Notre Dame, there is another transmitter with multiple stations on that transmitter. I've got a public broadcaster in Indianapolis that has his own ATSC 3 or NEXTGEN TV transmitter. So I feel like, as broadcasters, we've gone as far as we can go, or as far as we can go. Last thing I wanted to just chat about is the commission. So I mentioned that a lot of people are grinding their axe at the FCC. That's kind of normal process, I think. Fortunately, our trade association has a hard shell. You guys are used to the criticism, but just can you summarize for anyone watching here, what is it you've asked the FCC to do to get us across the line so we're not at 76% of America can see these signals, but we get to 100%?
Yeah, so I think the key thing that we have asked the commission to do is to, let's establish some firm dates for the transition. We need to get to a full and complete transition to ATSC 3.0. As you mentioned today, 4 and 5 channels are being put onto one station, the numbers that I talked about earlier. So that means that if you're a station trying to leverage 3.0, you're only operating at about 20% of what you could do once the transition is complete. And so what we've said is like, let's complete the transition. Let's establish firm dates. We've done that and said, let's do it in 2 sort of phases or tranches, if you will. And let's do the top 55 markets by February 2028, and let's do the remaining markets through to markets 56 through 210 by February of 2030. So that's the transition that we have proposed, and we think that establishing a firm date will really enable people to plan, enable people to execute, and get us to a place where consumers and viewers are able to really enjoy the benefits of a full ATSC 3.0 transition.
Well, Sam, thanks so much for your time. It's good to see excellent technical leadership at NAB, not only good lobbyists, but smart people, particularly to dream up the idea of BPS and to realize that GPS has no backup. All it takes is one satellite being blown out of orbit, and we're hosed, so to speak. So that's a good thing. I really appreciate your time. My name is Dave Arland, Executive Director of the Indiana Broadcasters Association. This has been Broadcast Advocate. We hope you tune in to our next episode.